for the past few days I've been using this $200 phone and I honestly didn't expect it to be this good. This is Samsung's Galaxy A16 5G, and I was particularly impressed that for daily tasks it was almost as good as my $1,000 flagship. But wait until you see the competition and you will appreciate the A16 5G even more. But first things first, let's take a look at the specs. You get a big 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display and 128 gigs of storage. You have 3 cameras on the back, but one of them is just for macro close-up photos, so it's more like 2 real cameras. And you also have a big enough 5000 mAh battery, and the phone supports 25-watt charging with one compromise: no wireless charging on board. This definitely sounds like a pretty good package for the price. But the first thing I was worried about when switching to a $200 phone was, will it be fast enough? The Galaxy A16 is powered by an Exynos 1330 chip, and it only has 4GB of RAM on board. So yeah, not very reassuring. A quick look at the benchmarks shows some welcome improvements from the last year's Galaxy A15, so that is good. We have a nearly 50% improvement in single-core CPU performance, which is honestly quite a lot. But there is almost no improvement in multi-core CPU performance. And my very first moments with the phone were disappointing. As I was setting it up, it was stuttering a lot, but after I installed all my apps and settled a bit, things improved a lot too. Daily tasks like browsing the web and social media are actually quite smooth, which was a pleasant surprise. But I was even more surprised that you can actually play quite a lot of games at pretty smooth frame rates. I played Grim Valor and it ran just fine, but more demanding games like Shadowgun Legends were a bit stuttery. This phone is not ideal for gamers, that's for sure, but if you're not playing the most demanding shooters, you can still game on it. However, I have to say that the Galaxy A16 limited performance can be noticed in some specific tasks more than others. The phone often takes an extra beat with simple things like texting, and some places in the menus are surprisingly slow. I noticed that searching in the settings for some reason often resulted in stutter and a lot of waiting. But let me tell you about my absolute favorite feature of this phone, and it is the screen. It absolutely surpasses expectations. It's a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display with beautiful colors, sharp 1080p resolution, and it has a 90Hz refresh rate for smoother scrolling. Just imagine that, Apple's $600 iPhone 16e has a choppier 60Hz refresh rate, and this dirt cheap phone beats it. But wait until you see the competition. Motorola's $200 Moto G phone comes with an LCD screen, which is a blast from the past, with colors that look much worse, and it has a much lower 720p resolution. The Galaxy is miles ahead. But while the A16 screen is very close to perfection, there are 2 small compromises here as well. First is a bit of extra chin on the bottom and the bigger bezels. And second, it doesn't get quite as bright as flagships. But in my opinion, those are not deal breakers. So what about the camera quality? On the back, this might look like a triple camera system, but the third lens is a quite useless 2-megapixel macro snapper, so effectively you only have a usable 50-megapixel main camera and a 5-megapixel ultra-wide one. Let's start with the ultra-wide camera. At just 5 megapixels, detail is clearly not great, and look at the corners, there are many artifacts and detail looks smudged. And when comparing the photo quality to the A15 from last year, it actually looks worse with more washed out colors. The main camera, however, is decent. The amount of detail is good, and you also have pixel binning, which means that pixels combine and you get images with less noise when you shoot in low light. Overall, the quality is satisfactory, but not great. I noticed that colors are also a bit on the cooler side, which I personally don't like. So if you care about camera quality, this is probably not the phone to get, but I would argue that it actually beats other phones at the same price. The A16 cannot record 4K video, but we don't really expect that from a $200 phone. Full HD videos, however, look improved compared to the previous model, have nicer colors and better exposure, and video stabilization is very good. So what about battery life? In our testing, the A16 lasted around 11 hours and 15 minutes for non-stop YouTube video streaming, which is above the average. But surprisingly, on our web browsing test, which is lighter, it scored below expectations at just under 10 hours. Overall, we estimate that you can get around 6 hours and 12 minutes of screen time on this phone, so it can comfortably last you a day, but not much more than that. So in the grand scheme of things, this is not great battery life. And that is one area where the Motorola Moto G 2025 actually beats the Galaxy A16, as it gets a total score of above 8 hours of screen time in our testing. Charging on the A16 comes at a standard 25 watt rate, so a full charge takes around 1 hour and 15 or 1 hour and 20 minutes. You don't have wireless charging though, which is a bit unfortunately, but you won't get that on other budget phones either, so that is expected. All of this said, let's look at all the other shortcomings of this phone so that you have the right expectations. First, there is no always on screen. Second, there is no Galaxy AI support. Third, sound quality via the loudspeakers is not great, but the phone does get loud. Next, there is no headphone jack now. And number 5, the vibration motor is low quality and the haptics don't feel very nice. Now, with a realistic view towards it, I think the Galaxy A16 beats expectations in many ways, and it is also great that it comes with 6 years of software support, more than all others in this price class. But if you're a phone enthusiast, don't expect any miracles, especially when it comes to the performance. So what are some other alternatives here? Now, probably the best one would be the CMF Phone 1, which is much smoother than the Galaxy in terms of performance, and it costs almost the same. Now, for those who value a good camera system, they should spend a bit more. My recommendation here is to hunt a Google Pixel 7a deal on Amazon. Luckily, that phone is often discounted to under $300, and for that money you get an absolutely stellar camera. But if you just want a cheap phone for browsing the web and social media, the Galaxy A16 gets the job done well enough, and with one of the best screens in this price.